Hello and welcome back to the Tuesday Checklist, the show where we take inspiration from a recent or upcoming release to spark a conversation about often entirely unrelated things. This week we've all been marvelling over Return of the Obra Dinn, a unique, stylish and utterly brilliant game we might have missed had Elle not spent practically every spare minute telling us how we'd be idiots if we didn't play it. This got us thinking about other incredible titles we nearly didn't play for whatever reason, but then, luckily, we did. And now we're going to tell you all about them, to make sure you don't nearly miss them either. Dave, you're first, with a game that, to be honest, only you could nearly miss out on.
It's actually Nathan that I have to thank for my my game, which is okay because he's not in the room, so I don't feel like I'm giving him, any compliments. And it's Dishonored, which I was kind of vaguely aware of when it came out, which is a bad thing to admit because I was doing this job at the time. We're supposed to be aware of many games, but Dishonored hadn't really appeared on my radar much. A friend of mine had been to a preview event about it, and the things he'd come back saying just sounded so insane that I think I'd just kind of put it out of my brain. He said that you could turn into a rat and enter a building through a drain pipe and then, explode or something. And I was just like, that doesn't sound good.
But Rosie's perked up.
I don't know what it is. So, yeah. I don't want anything to do with that. And it didn't really kind of cross my path again until right before it was released. A copy came into the office for Nath. And that evening, for some reason, Nath, I think he was like going out that evening, and he was like, I'm not going to play it tonight, does anyone fancy a go? And I decided I'd have a go because I had no plans for the evening. I was very, very alone. And it was really just to fill the void in my evening. I was like, I guess I'll play this game, and it's good for work to try games out. And Dishonored is amazing. It's amazing. Absolutely blew me away. And I do think that the best way of discovering an amazing game is exactly like this, because it's just so exciting to have no expectations of something and suddenly just be hooked right from the off. It like grabs you with the style. It's another classic game where you end up in a prison and have to break out. Yes. That's a trope I love. And I don't know, like the world is just so kind of intoxicating. It does that brilliant thing where like for instance, there were loads of like notes and books, and reading them wasn't a chore. Like I found myself trying to read everything, to just soak up everything about this world that I could, just like figure it out. And it's such a kind of a caricature, like kind of like an off. It's very recognizable as like a human world, like a human city, not completely unlike our world, but also just like everything's off. And then on top of that, but more than that, really was the gameplay mechanics, which are just so good. The powers are all so clever, and they all link up together so nicely. I don't know if you guys have ever seen videos of like a really, really skillful Dishonored player who just has like maxed everything out and knows the powers so like ridiculously well that they link them together in these like ways that surely the developers didn't expect. And they've built these worlds like full of puzzle, but with so many different options for solving the puzzle, which I think is just great. And finding those different ways of doing it, you always feel like a genius. So anyway, Dishonored, it's like it came out of left field for me at least. But then Dishonored 2, I was very, very ready for, and my God, I think they might have topped it. Dishonored 2 is fantastic, but not for this video.
All right, this is a game I've wanted to talk about for so long, and I'm so glad that we finally commandeered a Tuesday Checklist subject that I can just talk about this game. It is Return of the Obra Dinn. Now, this is a game that I can't even begin to explain. So it's the perfect thing to pick for a section where you have to explain something. So it's a game by a guy called Lucas Pope, and he is the definition of an independent game developer. He literally makes games by himself. He doesn't. He's incredibly annoying. Yeah. He's like some kind of game savant, and it's infuriating. And I never want to play his games, but I always end up doing it and then being like, oh, he's done it again. So he is brilliant, I guess. And his games are all really different. So it's really interesting when you know something new is coming from him, because you're like, I've got no idea what it'll be, because it'll just be some idea he's had that's completely genre changing and incredible. When he announced that Return of the Obra Dinn was coming, I just had no idea what it was going to be, and he didn't really reveal very much about it. So he had a couple little videos where he showed you tiny bits that he was making that didn't make any sense because you didn't really know what the game was. And then he had a tiny gameplay demo, and I couldn't decide whether I wanted to try it or not anyway, because I was like, oh, maybe I just want it to be a surprise. And I ended up not playing anything. All I knew was that it was a mystery game where you had to solve an adventure, and we had to solve an adventure? We had to go on an adventure to solve what happened to this ship that had just been found washed up somewhere. And within about 2 seconds, and this is not a spoiler, you find out you've got a time-traveling pocket watch. And I was like, okay, I've got no idea where this is going, because I thought it was just going to be like a very kind of straightforward, like, find a clue. This will help you here. This will help you here, as is the format of kind of games where you're solving a mystery. And it's not, because you pull out a time-traveling pocket watch. And what's going to happen is you're going to explore the history of this ship through magical frozen-in-time moments. And so you can walk around them, you can look at everybody in that scene, and right before you step into the scene, you hear a couple of seconds of audio that are literally the seconds leading up to the frozen in time moment you're about to walk into. And it's so magical. It's just so incredible. It looks like no game I've played before. So he really wanted to replicate very early games. And so it's that kind of muddy green color with just like white outlines to walk through. And very minimal interface. You have a notebook in game, and that's where you're kind of logging the clues you found and working out that you have a passenger list and working out what happened to each person. And it's truly, it just is like nothing I've ever played before, and I had no idea. I couldn't have anticipated what it was going to be like, but it is incredible. It's my dream game, because it's about using logic, and it's about deduction and your reasoning, your understanding of a scene. If you'd said to me that, there's no weapons for me to use, it's mostly played in, whilst there are kind of sound effects and there is a soundtrack that I'm obsessed with now, it's mostly played in silence, because that you're literally frozen in time. So you're not hearing anything aside from those few audio clips. And if you kind of described it to me before I played it, I'd have just thought, no, it's gonna be boring, I'm not gonna enjoy it, at no point do I kill anyone. But it was just this really magical experience. And I remember, like, when I had my last 3 fates to tick off, just barely wanting to do it, like literally putting it down, not playing it for a couple of days, because I was like, I cannot bear for this to finish. It truly was my dream experience of a game, and it's honestly one of my favourite games in the world. And when you compare it to my other kind of tops, which are like Modern Warfare and God of War and things like that, it's, I never would have thought that it would be a game that would mean so much to me, and I have just absolutely fallen in love with it. And yeah, I want everybody to play it so I can talk to everybody about it, but if you do, just space it out, because you never get to go back.
I really like Tuesday checklists like this because it gives me a chance to talk about games. I love nothing more than being really surprised by a game. And one game, I've hinted at it before, I think in the office, but not on this, not on video. It is A Hat in Time.
I'm trying to remember why you...
Isn't there like a bit of the title in front of A Hat in Time, or is it just A Hat in Time?
No, so it's just A Hat in Time. So the game is just called A Hat in Time, and it's probably one of the games of recent years that's put just the biggest smile on my face on how much I was surprised by it and how much I enjoyed it. And it was just a thoroughly enjoyable experience. It's a sort of action adventure platformer, and honestly it's just a joy to play. You're this little kid, she's got her spaceship, and basically the mafia come in and they're like, I know it sounds weird, and they just ruin the whole spaceship. You've got these little hourglass.
The mafia?
Yeah, the mafia. The mafia involved.
Some realistic games.
Yep. I bet you can turn into a rat as well.
Sure about this. Mafia and spaceships. Mafia in space.
That was my movie idea.
You've got the mafia involved. You've got
In space. A Godfather in space.
the mafia get involved, they ruin the spaceship, and then you land on this world, and you've got to collect these hourglass timepieces in order to fix your ship and then just get that running, because your ship is your home basically. So you're going to be going to like a mafia sort of world where everything's run by the mafia, but then you've also got one where there's an owl and a penguin, and they both really want to be film directors, but they've got completely different angles. Like the owl wants to create like murder mystery type things, like a Western style, and the penguin, he's all fabulous and he's always like, darling, and he just wants to create a massive flashy show. And you're just going through all of these worlds, and all the characters are so memorable, enjoyable. The Snatcher as well, in another world, he gives you a contract of like jobs you need to do, and he's always like, all I need is your soul, it's fine, don't worry about it. And your character is just so happy. She's just like, yeah, sure, I'll sign that, doink. And then he'll make you do these tasks, and then obviously he wants to kill you. But even the platforming segments themselves are really great. Like you've got like each world has different varied types of levels. So for example, you could go from trying to sneak around on the backstage of the film studio, and next thing you're in this sort of old haunted house, and just every now and then the screen starts shaking, the music's all like and you've just got to hide whilst also being in this happy environment, because you're this fun little hap kid who just goes like doink and stuff like that all the time. And it's got like really nice little challenging platform sequences when you get a bonus sort of like hourglass thing. It's a really, really charming game, and I played it with my roommate when it first came out, and both of us just completely fell in love with it. We kind of really bonded over it as well, because like I just moved out of my family home and I moved in with him, so that was kind of like I come home from work, let's just chill and play this really happy game. And we both sort of got the platinum for it because we just had such a lovely time with it, and the music in the game is so good as well. Like honestly, if you want like a really fantastic little game that will just put a beaming smile on your face and everyone loves it, who I know who's played it anyway, then honestly, A Hat in Time, it'll put the biggest smile on your face and you'll have a fantastic time with it.
Right, the game I'm going to talk about is a game that I would never have really considered playing, but I played it during a period of time where I just completed loads of short games, all in like a quick burst, because I wanted to finish things. And the game I'm going to talk about is Oxen, and it is an amazing game that I implore everyone to play if you've not played it yet. It is about a group of young friends, sort of like teenage age kids, and they go to this sort of abandoned island where there's like it's just a cool place for teenagers to hang out, and they hang out on a beach. You know what they do? The brochure. They get drunk and they talk about, you know, who fancies who, and they do dares and that kind of thing. And it's got a really cool mechanic for how you choose conversation options. Like all the speech is voice acted, but it's also sort of speech bubbled, and you can sort of interrupt sentences halfway through and direct the flow of conversation in a really natural way. And it's really satisfying doing that. Like, and the effort they've gone into in recording the dialogue in various multiple ways. So someone will have their sentence cut off, and the way they react to having their sentence cut off and then is amazing. It's hard to explain, but it's great. But the thing I really love about it is, and I had no idea this was going to happen, it's got this amazingly weird, kind of scary sci-fi element to it, and all of a sudden the game, if you know nothing about it like I did when I first played it, all of a sudden it becomes something entirely different altogether, like this strange sci-fi horror. And the way it works, it's so intriguing. Like it gradually, you peel back the layers on this strange mystery of this. I'm not going to spoil anything about it if I can avoid it, because it's really something you should experience for yourself. But something has happened, something bad has happened on this island in the past, something of a paranormal leaning, and there are elements in the game and scenes in the game, and the paranormal element sort of plays with the structure of the gameplay as well. So you're never really sure whether the sequence you're playing is actually happening or not, or whether it's sort of a figment of one character's imagination. And there are various different things that happen to the different characters that when you get to the end of the game, you're still sort of second guessing because of the nature of the paranormal element. You're like, did that thing that character said, did that actually happen, or was that part of the weird mystery? And there's this incredible twist at the end, which again I'm not going to spoil, but it sort of makes you do a second playthrough, and the second playthrough, I would argue, is in fact part of the first playthrough of the game. Like the second playthrough, you do all the same things, but the dialogue options sort of alter very slightly to reflect the fact that this is the second playthrough. And a sort of semi-spoiler is that part of the paranormal thing that happens in the story, it deals with the nature of time loops and being stuck in a time loop. And so when you play through the game a second time, everything is slightly the same but a little bit different, and the characters sort of get this weird, almost like the characters are experiencing deja vu, and they'll sometimes make references to the fact that this scene's happened before, this has happened before, right? And you're thinking to yourself, did they say that the first time I played through the game? And it's so good. Like it's hard to explain without spoiling the story, which I really don't want to do, but it's a brilliant game. Really well written, great characters, really memorable characters. Nice and short. You can finish it in like 4 or 5 hours. Like, you know, so if you're busy, you've got lots, you know, adult life gets in the way often of trying to finish these massive games. This is a game you can finish, and it is well worth your time to finish it.
It sounds really difficult. It sounds like that's your takeaway from this. Sounds hard. Like, next. But it does. You just said, like, if someone explained it to you, you'd be like, no. And I'm like, I am intrigued by it, but also I don't like games where I have to think loads.
What can I say? I'm a simple man. I'm going to play Return of the Obra Dinn though. It does sound incredible. Let us know in the comments about any hidden gems you love. Give this video a like if you enjoyed it, and click that notification bell so you're always up to date with everything from the world of PlayStation. Thanks for watching, and see you again soon.
For the players.